A disability is something that has a major impact on your life.
Every disability is different.
And it's never the same thing for two people. I am blind in my right eye totally and partially sighted in my left eye.
I was 18 years old. We were traveling way too fast on a gravel road. Broke my neck, my back.
My Asperger's syndrome and my cerebral palsy.
I have anxiety and depression. People would have no idea just talking to me.
Being independent means different things to different people.
I want to live in my own house. I want to pay my own bills.
Live independently and not rely on other people.
When someone is not able to live as independently as they can, it does have a detrimental effect on people's physical and mental well-being.
It's no complicated thing. It's just that people with disabilities want to be included.
Plenty of people get stuck in ruts when they feel like they can't overcome something in their life. That's where LIFTT comes in.
Living independently for today and tomorrow. LIFTT. We help people of all ages and all types of disabilities find the resources or acquire the skills to live as independently as possible.
We serve the southeastern 18 counties here at the Billings office. We have a variety of things that we offer. We can help with grant funding for adaptive equipment.
Maybe a home modification so they're able to access their home. We help people to find that funding.
Helping people apply for Social Security benefits.
Medicaid, Medicare, housing.
They have a peer support group. Peer support, I think, is key.
Sharing life experiences is one of the most powerful things to help people who might be new to disability, who might be struggling with their disability.
Youth transitions is kids that are transitioning out of high school. They need to learn those adulting skills. It might be rent an apartment, learn how to grocery shop, budgeting.
Help someone advocate for themselves in a school or an employment setting. One of our biggest strengths is providing folks with information and referral. If we can't help you, we hope to know who can.
A lot of times we'll have a potential consumer call in and they think that they just have one need, and it turns out that we end up finding 3 or 4 things we can actually do for them.
You can just come in and say, hey, I feel like I have this going on. Can you help me? And we can, which is so cool to me. I love that.
Most of us on staff at LIFTT have identified ourselves as having one or more disabilities. That is helpful in many cases.
It's easier to empathize with someone when you yourself have struggled with a disability.
This is what we specialize in. This is who we are, and this is what we do.
And it costs nothing to go to LIFTT. It's a nonprofit organization and they're there to help.
Somebody that was a consumer that was working with LIFTT was asked to do an art project. He visualized that the balloon helps to lift people up. And then it became the logo, and it's stuck.
There's been success on all kinds of levels.
It's really rewarding to have a consumer go, hey, I was able to do this by myself today.
We want people to live their best life as independent as possible.
Live as everyone else in society and live as a part of society, not apart from society.
Everybody needs help. Sometimes you just need a little more help, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay.
There's plenty of life to live still, and there's a way you can do it. Keep chipping away at it, little by little by little.
Knowledge is power. Let's share it, for crying out loud.
Send us an email, give us a call. We'll do our best to help.
We can definitely help figure out what your needs are and get started on that. We're one of many steps in the path to independence, and we're happy to be serving people here in the community. Hello, and welcome to Living Well in Montana. Living Well in Montana is a program provided to you by Living Independently for Today and Tomorrow, or LIFTT. LIFTT is Center for Independent Living here in the state of Montana, one of 4. We serve the southeastern 18 counties, and it is our mission to provide empowerment and independence to the aging and people with disabilities. My name is Tanya Thomas. I'll be your host today. I'm LIFTT's Peer Program Coordinator. And today in the studio with me, I have Jed Barton. Jed is the Government Affairs Specialist and Public Affairs, I believe. Correct, Jed?
Public Relations, Government Affairs
Perfect.
Specialist, yep.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tanya.
So, I know recently that you participated in something I've never heard of, and I'm super excited to talk about today, is the Disability Power on the Hill. Could you tell us a little bit first off about the AAPD and the program itself and the event?
The Disability Power on the Hill was an event sponsored, as you said, by the American Association of Persons with Disabilities, which is a organization that again advocates for and with and on behalf of the, I think they said, I can't remember how many millions of Americans have one kind of disability or another, but it is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10% of the population, I believe.
Okay.
And so AAPD, as they style themselves, invited advocates from all 50 states to come to Washington, D.C., and spend a couple of days in meetings, and then on the last day we were there, they had arranged for us for meetings with our various congressional delegations and or their staffers in the Capitol complex.
That's wonderful. Now, how did you become to learn about, know about, be involved, get the invite to the Disability Power on the Hill?
I got an email in the beginning of the summer from AAPD saying that we're doing this and we're covering the expenses to the people we choose, and I filled out an application and they selected my application.
That's phenomenal. What was so it was a trip sponsored by the AAPD?
Yes.
And then, so what was your involvement in the trip? Did you have an itinerary?
Yes. We flew to Washington on Sunday the 7th of September, and then on Monday the 8th we had a morning meeting where we heard from the Medicaid director for the state of Colorado and a couple of advocates, one from the Independent Living Center in Chicago and one from Disability Rights California, who talked about what the realities are coming to Medicaid, because at least at the moment, now that the House and the Senate passed that large, what the president calls the big beautiful bill, back in July, and again, part of that bill includes changes to Medicaid in terms of what states are required to do and how much money the federal government is going to put into it. And so we had a webinar, or a seminar, I guess, because although our presenters were virtual, but everyone else participating was in the room, talking about those changes and the timeline for them over the next 12 to 18 months.
What was your takeaway for those of us back here at home?
The changes that are coming to Medicaid, if they stick, will quite frankly make it more difficult for people to get the services and supports they need. The federal government is not contributing as much money to Medicaid as they have in the past, and there may be good reasons for that and there may not be good reasons for that, but that is the bottom line. They are adding things like redetermination of eligibility every 6 months, which simply adds bureaucratic complications to it. That's more paperwork that people on Medicaid have to do. That's more paperwork the state of Montana Medicaid office has to process, which again further means more people processing paperwork is less money available for actual supports and services.
That's a really good point. Is this your first time participating in Disability Power on the Hill, or?
Yes, I have been to Washington a few times in this job for the National Council on Independent Living, but I have not been to the AAPD event before.
I love that. Do you have any, I was just going to ask you about what hot button topics were.
Yeah, we kind of we kind of got through Monday morning here, so I'll
do you just want to run through? Yeah,
I'll run through and you can interject. So Monday afternoon, again, AAPD makes it a priority to bring folks to DC who haven't been or wouldn't have a chance to be, and again, they're very generous with the paying for things like airfare and hotel and per diem and all of that. So Monday afternoon was reserved for folks to see some sights or take some downtime. I actually took a nap, so missed the Smithsonian on this trip. But Tuesday morning we had our briefing again. The centerpiece of the event was Wednesday, which is the day we spent up on Capitol Hill. And so Tuesday morning we had a webinar or a briefing. I keep saying webinar, but it was a briefing on what to expect on Capitol Hill and how to conduct oneself in a congressional office, and all of what security you have to go through, and all of that stuff. And as well as we talked about some of the issues that AAPD is focused on this congressional term. Again, the AAPD has identified some issues that they believe they can get bipartisan support on through the House and the Senate and all the way to the signature of the president. Again, whether that'll hold, who knows, but these were the issues that they identified that already have bills that have been drafted, and Republican and Democratic co-sponsors in the House and the Senate. One bill was to officially end Section 14C of the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is the portion of the act that allows persons with disabilities to be paid a sub-minimum wage under the guise of training. Several states, both blue and red, have already taken steps to end it in their states.
Oh, good.
But again, it is a federal regulation. It's been in the Fair Labor Standards Act since 1938. So again, I am happy to report that again, amongst the bipartisan support for that end of Section 14C and a transition to competitive integrated employment, again, that's the key, is that these programs that we're paying sub-minimum wage are going to receive the programs and people involved who've either been paid sub-minimum wage or were receiving sub-minimum wage. Again, there are $300 million of federal funding that will help transition folks into regular competitive, what we call competitive integrated employment, just employment.
That's wonderful.
And Senator Daines, our senior senator here in Montana, is the chief Republican co-sponsor of that bill in the Senate. He has been for the last couple of Congresses. They've almost got it over the line last time around, and hopefully the momentum will build even further this time around. Another bill that AAPD identified was a bill to increase the asset limits for those on supplemental security income, SSI. The SSI asset limits currently are $2,000 for a individual and $3,000 for a couple. That means that in order to receive SSI benefits, and often more importantly than the cash for many people, the Medicaid benefits that come attendant to SSI, you can have no more than $2,000 in assets, or if you're a married couple, $3,000 in assets. That is a very tough road for folks to manage. It means means you have to limit how much you earn. It means you have to limit how much you save. It means
that is,
you're essentially forced into living hand to mouth, so to speak. And so again, well, obviously, we don't necessarily want people with unlimited assets receiving benefits. There is a consensus, and hopefully it will lead to congressional and then presidential action to on a limit of $10,000 for individuals and a limit of $20,000.
Wow, that's a
for a
massive
married
increase.
couple. Again, it's been 40 or more years since the $2,000 limit was put in. So again, if it had been indexed to something, and I don't know whether they're planning to index it once they hit the 10,000 and 20,000, but it will make a difference in the ability of people who happen to rely on SSI to also be able to contribute as productive members of the workforce, because they may not, people may not be able to work full time or earn enough to not need some benefits, but we can't make it harder for them to earn just to keep minimum benefits.
Right. Wow, that's exciting.
The final bill that AAPD identified is called the IDEA Full Funding Act. IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, and that's the bill that was passed in the 1970s to guarantee the right to a free and equal and accessible education to all. When it was passed in 1975, the deal was the federal government was supposed to fund 40% of the total of the formula that per student for students with IEPs and Section 504 documentation. So the federal government was supposed to give 40%, in the states, and the municipalities were supposed to fill in the other 60% of the funding. Going back to that 1975, to the Ford administration, the federal government has never fully funded IDEA as per the language of the Act. Usually that number hovers around 15 to 18%. Right now it is 13%. So states and municipalities and school districts are forced to cover more than they're supposed to. And there is movement, and again, it's an odd kind of movement, because some people are talking about it as if, we've heard the president say the Department of Education is going to be drawn down and perhaps disbanded. Some people on the Hill are talking about, oh, that's where we'll get the money for this. Other people are talking about funding it in other ways, but there is this consensus amongst many Republicans and Democrats that IDEA, the federal contribution to IDEA does need to increase, hopefully, to meet that full 40%, for the first time in almost 5 decades.
Wow.
So those are the bills that we were briefed on. And then on Tuesday evening, we went up to Capitol Hill and we attended a reception that AAPD had organized with some members of the House of Representatives. There were a few I didn't quite catch their names of, but I know for a fact that Representative Danny Davis of Illinois and Representative Bobby Scott of Virginia and Representative Pete Sessions of Texas were there. Scott and Davis are Democrats. Sessions is a Republican. Each of them spoke to us about their own, why they are involved in disability issues.
What were some of, out of curiosity, what were some of their answers? Do you recall?
I was getting
Sorry, don't go ahead.
to that. Representative Davis talked about, as a younger man, again, he's been in Congress a long time. He's in his final term. He's decided to retire. As a younger man, it was the constituents he met on the south side of Chicago with disabilities, and the folks who advocate for disabilities so well in the Chicago area, led by the SIL there. Now he is most of the time using a mobility device. When he's dressed up, he carries a pretty formal cane, but at times he says to access the House chamber or to his office, or when he's back in Illinois, he uses a walker. And so it's that saying that we have in the disability community, everybody who lives long enough will acquire a disability. Representative Sessions of Texas, again, who's is a pretty well-known entity in the conservative movement, has been known for challenging even the president from the right at times. Talked about his and his wife's experience raising a child in the Dallas area with Down syndrome, and that he believes that things like research and treatment for some and adaptations for others, depending on what the condition is, need to be funded. And so that's why, again, I believe they're members of a working group in the House called the Disability Caucus, which includes many Republicans and Democrats who meet to discuss these issues and see where they can find common ground. So that was interesting. And again, the Capitol was my first time in the Capitol Visitor Center, which was constructed after the last time I'd actually set foot in the physical Capitol. So that was good, and it was a pretty nice evening weather-wise, so that was good. The next morning was our visit to Capitol Hill. And so my day on Capitol Hill started off, it was a Wednesday morning. So if you're a Montanan and you're ever in D.C. on a Wednesday morning, our congressional delegation, and they've done this for years, Republicans, Democrats, everything in between, hosts a reception for Montanans on Wednesday morning from 8:15 to about 9 o'clock usually. And usually all 4 members of our delegation try to be there. The House members weren't able to be there this time because their committees were called into session. But I got a minute to chat with Senator Daines and Senator Sheehy, and to see some people I know from other things here in Montana, the folks from the School Board Association, folks from the Farmers Union, you know, all in DC to do the same sort of thing we were doing for disabilities. So from there, I went to Congressman Downing's office and met with a member of his staff who we talked about the issues I mentioned, you know, being briefed on. I also told them about what was going on at LIFTT, about our rural transportation program and some other things in our new to us building here in Billings. And then got to take the train under the Capitol. Actually got to take the train from the Senate side to the House side after the Montana Coffee, thanks to Senator Dane's staff. And then with some fellow AAPD advocates, thanks to a congressman from Arkansas, got to take the train back across the Senate side, had lunch in the Dirksen Senate cafeteria, which is, again, think the nicest college cafeteria you've ever seen. And then met similarly with staff members for Senator Sheehy and Senator Daines in the afternoon, and then was able to walk down to Union Station and take the subway back to our hotel. And then the next day I flew back home. Was supposed to fly out of Nashville, got to Nashville. My flight was delayed, so they sent me to Dulles and flew home from Dulles to Denver to here.
That sounds, I love it. I love listening to you speak on advocacy and legislature, and this is fantastic. We're going to be wrapping up shortly, but I did want to ask you, who is the AAPD looking for? Who is eligible? Who do they want for
the
this?
AAPD is looking for this Hill Day, which they hope to have again next year.
Okay.
Again, and it might be a slightly different time of year because the congressional calendar is slightly different in an election year. But they look for people with disabilities, advocates with disabilities, or again, there were some folks with us who, again, were representing their children or their family members,
Okay.
particularly with disabilities that are more severe. Or
Right.
so yeah, I met amazing folks from all over the country. And you know, it's interesting to learn what goes on in different states, and our challenges may be different, our locations may be different, but a lot of it is the same, and hopefully we can build a nationwide solidarity.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jed. If anybody has any information or anything they will need to know about LIFTT, where can they find us?
You can find LIFTT online at liftt.org, or you can give us a call at 406-259-5181 in Billings, or 406-948-8500 in Glendive.
Fantastic. Jed, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Tanya.
You're very welcome. And we'll see you next time on Living Well in Montana.